Hello marine biology students. In this video we're going to talk about the life that lives in the bottom levels of the ocean. While there are differences between the bathypelagic, abyssopelagic, and hadopelagic, also known as the deep sea, we're going to be focusing on the similarities between these different levels. This includes they are uniformly dark, uniformly cold, uniform in their salinity, and water chemistry, and high pressure. So these are the three layers of the sea below the mesopelagic. For animals of the bathypelagic, abyssopelagic, and hadopelagic, no countershading is needed, as no light is present. Bioluminescence is also present in the upper portions of the deep sea, but its occurrence actually decreases with increasing depth. Bioluminescence is thought to be used for courtship, communication, and/or to attract prey. Unlike organisms in the mesopelagic, the photophores the structures that generate bioluminescence are normally located near or on the head, as opposed to the ventral side of the body. In animals of the deep sea, their eyes are small or may be absent altogether. Eyes are used only to detect bioluminescence. These organisms also typically have pressure-resistant enzymes to allow their metabolism to proceed, something that surface marine organisms would not be able to do. When we look at the fish of the bathypelagic, abyssopelagic, and hadopelagic, the fish are similar to those in the mesopelagic that wouldn't migrate. Such as the absence of swim bladders, flabby muscles, light and weak skeletons. Typically, their mouth will also be large, with long, pointed teeth. They tend to have less developed nervous system and circulatory systems as well, and this may be because of lower nutrition availability. Here we see a variety of the types of fish that live in the deep sea, from different types of anglerfish to gulper eels and swallower eels. These organisms in a lot of ways look very different from surface fish. Some, like anglerfishes, possess a lure on their head containing symbiotic bioluminescent bacteria. To attract prey. Certain reproductive and lifestyle changes are also found in these deep-sea organisms. One includes male parasitism. This can be seen in the anglerfish, where the male is much smaller than a female, and when a male comes in contact with a female, it will bite onto the female and end up dissolving its face and lips and even brain, merging into the female's circulatory system. And in that way, the male just becomes a pair of gonads available for the female whenever she needs to fertilize her eggs. Some deep-sea fish will use chemical cues and pheromones to help attract the opposite sex. And there is a higher incidence of hermaphrodism. Because with so few individuals in the area, finding a member of the opposite sex may be less likely than simply finding another member of your same species. There are organisms that not only live in the water column above the seafloor, but also on the seafloor itself. The deep-sea benthos depends on food that reaches the bottom from higher in the water column. Decomposing bacteria can be found in deep-sea sediments, but they decompose at a much slower rate than bacteria at the surface because of the extreme pressure. Many of the benthic organisms of the deep sea will be deposit feeders. And they will mostly be epifauna. This is more dominant over suspension feeders because there isn't a lot of food suspended in the water, but it will slowly settle as sediment over time. In the deep sea, there's also a wide variety of meiofauna. These are the organisms that live between the sediment grains in the sediments. When we look at the deep-sea benthic fish, they're actually typically larger and more muscular than deep-sea pelagic fish. They will often have an elongated shape and will usually be darkly pigmented. They typically will have small eyes. An interesting aspect of some of the deep-sea benthos is a condition known as deep-sea gigantism. This is where many organisms tend to be larger than counterparts in shallower marine communities. They tend to grow more slowly and have exceptionally long life. Of these marine organisms, many reproduce late in life and have few large but well-developed eggs. In fact, for some of these deep-sea organisms, they will not reproduce until they've found enough food to generate the reproductive cells. And so for some organisms, sexual maturity does not onset until they've had their first large meal. This chart allows us to compare the fish in different levels of the ocean, from the epipelagic with the rapid swimmers with streamlined body, the mesopelagic vertical migrators, which will be smaller but still have strong muscles, the mesopelagic non-migrators, which are going to have weak and flabby muscles but are more likely to have spines, the deep-sea pelagic, which often lack any sort of streamlining to their body, and then the deep-sea bottom dwellers, which are going to be back to having strong muscular bodies and usually elongated in shape. One last community to talk about in the deep sea are those found at the deep-sea hydrothermal vents. Here, chemical-laden water escapes from cracks in the sea floor, particularly around mid-ocean ridges. These are used by chemoautotrophic bacteria as a form of primary production. Most of these bacteria use hydrogen sulfide. The bacteria feed many types of animals. These deep-sea hydrothermal vents can be oases in the otherwise nutrient-poor deep sea. There are a few different types of hydrothermal vents, including black smokers and white smokers, and they support bacteria that are the base of a food chain of fishes, shrimps, clams, crabs, snails, barnacles, sponges, and other animals. There's amazingly rich diversity at these deep-sea hydrothermal vents. Many of the hydrothermal vents are dominated by tube worms, like this image pictured. The main genus of these tube worms is Riftia. And these tube worms harbor symbiotic chemoautotrophic bacteria that manufacture organic matter from hydrogen sulfide, and this in turn provides nutrition to the mouthless worm. So surprisingly, these worms do not have mouths or digestive systems, but instead they have means of bringing in the chemicals needed by these chemoautotrophic bacteria to allow them to generate organic matter. And that completes our discussion about what's at the bottom of the ocean. Now, next week we're going to talk about what resources we as humans get from the oceans. So see you next week. Bye.